Hey everyone! Welcome back to Clips of Time, where we at the Tobacco Farm Life Museum are exploring history through newspaper articles and firsthand accounts. And we are excited that you have decided to join us here today. You can always visit our website to see our coloring book pages and to see other resources that we have for the kiddos or for you. Everyone is welcome to participate, so please check those out. This is the museum's 37th year, so we are excited to still be continuing what our founders started so long ago. We started with on-farm tours of local farms, one of the first agritourism locations in the state of North Carolina, and we do continue that today with groups of 10 or more, and we are thankful for the relationship we have with our farmers. Last week we talked about how important our farmers are and looked at what it takes to be a farmer. So I'd encourage you to go back and look at that video if you get the chance. But we just want to really thank all of our farmers who are working hard on the front lines, trying to make sure that our food is available and ready for us to get to. We know that they're struggling with making sure that they're redirecting those goods to where they can best be used and utilized. So thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about Hoover carts. So this is a topic that comes up with our friends who come and visit us, our visitors, often. So let's talk about what Hoover carts were. And if you've ever taken a trip to the museum, you know we talk about how resourceful farmers are, how they would utilize everything that they had on the farm to make the job possible. And we talk about, with the kids groups, games, how they would use those tools in games, rope for tug of war, horseshoes for the game of horseshoes, and they would use those materials for their downtime. But they also used materials like flour sacks and feed sacks for clothing. They would make aprons or shirts or clothes out of those materials. They would even use tools on the farm or metal pieces and rework those so that they would have the screwdriver they needed or the tool that they needed. So they were very resourceful. And the reason was they didn't have a whole lot of access to extra income. So even before the Depression, the farmers were really had to make use of what they had and borrow from neighbors or utilize what they could get their hands on. But this was especially true during the Great Depression, which hit about 1929. But what we saw in the late 20s was industrialization. So we started to see some money start to trickle into the rural communities. And in the late 20s, some of those farmers were starting to buy cars. Okay, well, when the Great Depression happened in 1929, those cars were useless after that because they couldn't afford the gas to drive those cars. So ultimately they kind of became yard decorations. But farming communities learned to make do. So we're going to learn about what they did with those cars. They didn't just sit in the yard. And we're going to talk about the Hoover carts, which were named after the 31st president who had just taken office the year of the stock market crash. So we're going to hear from Bob Boyette in his book Treasured Times, which we sell in our gift shop, and we would encourage you to go and visit our gift shop online. But this is his article in the Kinley News from July 8th, 1987, and it was a vehicle of the times. He's talking about the Hoover cart. The title of the article is Hoover cart was a unique vehicle. It was a vehicle of the times. The unique Depression chariot was called the Hoover cart, after the president who people blamed for the hard times. The two-wheel carts built by farmers became their primary means of transportation during the early 1930s. Using the car's rear axle, rear wheels, and at least one spring, farmers would build a cart with a bench-type seat for two to be drawn by their mule. A Hoover cart, with its balloon automobile tires, rode easier than the steel-rimmed buggy. After the initial construction, there was not any operating cost since the farmer raised the mule's feed and he had to have his mule to work the farm. There were so many Hoover carts that many towns had parades honoring the vehicle. Mr. Blinn Hennett, currently Kinley resident, remembers going to the Goldsboro Hoover Cart Parade. He did not remember the one held in Smithfield in October 1932. He said many farmers were forced to build the carts because they could not afford either the gas or the annual auto license fee. Gasoline sold for about 20 cents per gallon during the Depression. The Smithfield Parade was sponsored by the Johnston County Democratic Executive Committee. The Smithfield Herald called it a fitting adjunct to the 1932 Democratic rally. If you know your history, then you know President Hoover was a Republican. When reading about the parade, one can appreciate the hard times. Total prize money was $38. First prize winner received only $15, while fourth place paid $2.50. $5 was given for the most comical cart. Everyone who entered the cart did get some merchandise from Smithfield merchants. Prize money was furnished by the Democrat Executive Committee and tobacco warehouses. The winning cart's owners had an oilcloth roof as protection from the burning rays of the sun. The second place winner was the most substantial rig in the parade. It was two-seated and took two mules to pull it. It combined a 1900s model carriage and a 1920 model Ford axle and wheels. The owner rode backwards. He claimed he had been going backwards for 4 years and was tired of it. One young boy from Smithfield had a Hoover cart drawn by his pony. He carried a placard announcing when he became 21, he would vote against Hoover. The cart that won most comical was a man-powered cart. It had a dilapidated barber's chair for a seat. There were 47 Hoover vehicles in the parade. Osborne Starling of Pine Level was one of 6 who did not win a prize but did get honorable mention for his rig. The October 7th, 1932 edition of the Smithfield Herald tells about the Depression vehicle parade. And in his book, at the time, the museum must have had a Hoover cart on display at the museum because he mentions it as being on display at the museum, and there it is, a Hoover cart. That is not currently on display at the museum right now, but I did just learn that that was there at some point in time. So, that was Bob Boyette's. His was a more lighthearted view of the Hoover cart, but the editor of the Selma News had a different take on the Hoover carts. And the next article is from Selma's The Johnstonian Sun from Thursday, October 6, 1932, just after the Smithfield Parade, procured from the Digital NC database. This author did not think the scene was as lighthearted as Mr. Boyette's. The Hoover Cart Parades. By frequently staging some of Hoover Cart Parade, many people are acknowledging mistakes they've made. They bought new cars and rode as long as they could, and then they dismantled both the body and the hood. They took 2 wheels and the axle from the rear and rigged them up into a much-prized souvenir. This souvenir they are using as a token of the past because they are coming to their senses at last. They rode and saw their bank accounts dwindle and continued to ride with 2 wheels and the spindle. They advertised to the world they've been free to spend and have been too much on the go throughout the weekend. Instead of staging parades in their contempt for Hoover, each one should confess he's been too much of a Hoover. The empty seats at the churches on the Saturday and Sunday has caused many of a fellow to spend a blue Monday. Instead of giving this thing the name Hoover Cart, they should remember that the blame is on their part. They are advertising to the world how silly they've been, and to try to lay it on Hoover is a shame and a sin. Churches have been made to suffer for lack of support, and the jails have been filled with cases in the court. Mortgages and taxes have taken thousands of homes away because they rode, and they rode both night and day. They are now being used as a mere political tool by parading the streets with 2 wheels and a mule. It is frank admission as to how their money went, but they are trying to discredit our president. Just note the auto skeletons about any town or city, and if you don't stop inside, you are void of pity. It is a sad spectacle to everyone who passes by, and as to the depression, that's the answer why. So the author is clearly not in support of accusing Hoover for the financial situations. Instead, he's crediting people spending their money foolishly. But I think what this shows is that the farmers took those cars and used them by putting the tires on the wagons to make the wagon trips more comfortable, because those their cart wheels were not comfortable. When they hit the rocks on the roads or the holes, it would just bounce everything around. So they were using the bits and the pieces of the cars to use. And mankind is known for being able to be adaptable. So in our current situations, we found that we've had to adapt. So I'm asking you to show us or comment and let us know how you've adapted, or what things you found useful during this time to keep you occupied or busy. And I think one of the great examples are the drive-by birthday parties, how people have adapted, but still showing love and support to others. So we would love to see that. If you have memories or would like to share pictures, family pictures or stories of your family, we would love to see that as well. We thank you for joining us today. We thank you for helping us keep history alive, and we hope that we'll be able to open up soon and that you will come out and visit us. Thank you so much for being here today, and have a great day.